When someone passes away, their soul is supposed to go to the afterlife, but that's not always the case, and that's scary. From terrifying final moments to spirits still lurking inside hospitals and morgues, these are moments when the dead came back. This CCTV recording came from a wing inside a pathology department in Ohio. In the footage, one of the morgue tables suddenly began moving. It rolled forward like the spirit of a patient was pushing it. Workers checked the CCTV footage after finding the table in the wrong place. They were confused because that facility was enclosed with no windows that let drafts in, and with that much weight on it, a morgue table cannot just slide across a flat surface like that. So what do you think moved it? Final goodbye. This woman was working at a funeral home and cleaning a casket right before the final ceremony. After she finished and began walking away, the lid suddenly started to lift. A hand could be seen pushing it upward from inside. She turned just in time to see it, then immediately bolted out of the room in terror. When she alerted the management, they didn't believe her until they checked the security footage. What's creepier is that at the same time, something far worse happened in the next room. After seeing both events, they thought the souls were making their presence known one last time before finally moving on. Sliding figure. A nurse filmed a casual clip of a colleague sitting on a chair during their shift. Everything looked normal until the camera caught something in the background. A figure slid across the corridor, moving from one side to the other. Later, it reappeared, crawling along the floor in a way that didn't feel natural. The staff noticed it too. Their shocked reactions caught on camera as they slowly backed away. They reported it, but higher authorities dismissed it to protect the hospital's reputation. Red-face figure. He was filming a casual vlog when everything went wrong. Focusing on a room full of hospital furniture, his camera caught a strange witch-like figure. On one of the beds sat a figure completely still, its long hair hiding its face. Then, slowly, the head tilted toward him, and the red, horrifying face came into view. Knowing he couldn't stick around, he ran for his life, leaving only the footage behind, a clip that still haunts anyone who watches it. Terrifying moment. The following footage from a hospital in Texas is too disturbing. After this person's last moments, he was about to be taken to be prepared for his final ceremonies. That's when something terrifying began to happen. This kept happening for nearly 2 minutes. The doctors didn't intervene because they were genuinely terrified, as this had never happened before. They couldn't decide if that was a result of delayed muscle spasms or some kind of possession. Resurrection. This CCTV footage from 30th of November last year shows a forensic pathologist on his chair, finishing up his work. After sensing movement behind him, he turned and saw the most horrifying sight of his career. Fear overwhelmed him and he bolted out of the room. After reviewing the footage, the staff realized that earlier that week, the exact thing had happened to another colleague. No one has been able to find out what's causing these events. Hospital possession. This CCTV captured a terrifying moment in a hospital. A man who'd been paralyzed and on life support for over 2 years suddenly began moving fiercely. His limbs twisted wildly, and he nearly got off the bed. A nurse immediately rushed to help. The person who shared the footage explained that staff eventually restrained him, and after he calmed down, this never happened again. They didn't know what had caused the paralyzed man to be able to do that, and think something paranormal was at play. Mysterious apparition. In this CCTV footage from a hospital in Indonesia, it seemed like there was a person standing near the foot of the bed, staring at the patient. But watch closely because that's not the case. When the patient's family member came to visit, you can clearly see that they walked right through the figure, as if it wasn't a solid form. They weren't aware of it. The figure stayed there motionless for nearly 20 minutes. Now, as the video goes viral, some viewers think this could be that patient's deceased family member visiting their loved ones. Haunted hospital. In Gary, Indiana, a watchman on late duty saw a hospital bed appear in the hallway on its own. There was a dark figure shaped like a person, slowly moving in a creepy way. That hallway led to the old morgue that was about to be rebuilt for another purpose. What terrified him more was that 6 days ago, while monitoring CCTV from the control room, he had seen a smoky, ghostly shape hovering over a bed in that same empty morgue. So he recorded that bed and left, planning to alert the higher authorities the next day. Believe it or not, all these terrifying moments happened inside the same hospital. Bizarre event. A nurse from Ohio recorded a creepy clip inside a hospital emergency room in December 2025. A hanging sign suddenly began to swing on its own. No one was standing near it, and the movement stayed steady. What was even more shocking is that this exact thing had been happening every single day. The sign swings daily for nearly 5 minutes, then goes completely still again. This pattern has been repeating for 3 weeks. With no explanation for this bizarre event, the staff slowly became used to it. Chilling morgue video. Late at night in Springfield, Ohio, CCTV footage from the local Mercy General Hospital morgue captured something chilling. A nurse entered to check on a body, staying only a few seconds before leaving. Moments after she stepped out, the camera caught the body slowly rising above the stretcher, still covered, as if it was levitating on its own. There were no visible supports, no movement from anyone nearby, and no explanation for how it happened. The clip has left viewers stunned and debating endlessly. How could this happen without a soul? If you have a theory, comment below. Dark, smoky figure. This terrifying incident happened on the 12th of November, 2020, around 2 a.m. as this nurse was walking inside a hospital in Delaware. The doors at the end of the corridor slammed open mysteriously. It was not caused by the wind, because the CCTV footage clearly captured a dark, smoky shape too. It had appeared right before the doors opened, with enough force to nearly knock them off their hinges. Strangely, those had been locked too, because they led to a wing no longer in use at the time. The nurse could only keep staring in disbelief as they swung shut again. Nurse's spirit. You won't believe what these people encountered. They decided to break into one of the most paranormally active hospitals in Thailand. While exploring, one of them suddenly saw a person in a blue surgical gown peeking from a doorway. They followed it with a torch and watched it walk through another doorway and vanish completely. Years earlier in 1995, a nurse had passed away there after the hospital became too understaffed. She'd been overworked for months and passed away after catching a contagious disease without proper medical precautions. They realized this was the same nurse. Fear took over, and they ended the exploration immediately. Grim Reaper. One patient from a hospital in the Philippines thought he was hallucinating, but then his phone camera proved that he was not. Near the bed of another patient, a tall, dark figure was standing still, as if looking down at him. It looked exactly like a Grim Reaper waiting to take him away. No one else in the room reacted or seemed to notice it at all, despite feeling scared. He was also relieved that it wasn't there for him, just like he had guessed. That patient did not make it, and after that, the Reaper vanished too. Patient's revenge. Last year, a hospital in Sydney, Australia saw a rapid loss in patients and staff, and the reason will terrify you. Strange activity had suddenly begun happening. At first, it only affected objects. Then, it escalated and started to affect people as well. With time, even patients began to get possessed. Everyone slowly started to leave the hospital as authorities were unable to find the root cause. If they don't get it under control, the hospital might have to shut down soon. Creepy clip. This CCTV footage showed one of the stretchers sliding across the room on its own, like something invisible pushed it. A moment later, a second table shifted too. Then the body on top of it slowly sat upright without anyone touching it. If it were wind or someone nearby, other things would have shifted too, but the room stayed still. Whatever caused this focused on just those two stretchers, and that detail is what made people question what they were really seeing. Creepy woman. This footage came out of Islamabad, Pakistan, where a clinic CCTV recorded a lone figure walking down an empty road around 2 a.m. She moved through the street slowly, almost floating. Her long hair covered her face, and her white clothing seemed to glow faintly in the dark. What unsettled viewers wasn't just her presence, but her arm. It stretched farther than it should have, bending the rules of normal proportions. Locals whispered about a churrail, a spirit from folklore said to roam at midnight. Others brushed it off as a camera glitch or a trick of perspective, but once you saw how she moved, you couldn't unsee it. Creepy morgue video. The security guard heard a strange noise coming from the morgue around 3 a.m. and went to check. Inside, he noticed a small plastic stool shift slightly on its own. Curious and uneasy, he stayed to watch. Moments later, objects moved again, this time faster across the room. That was enough for him to back away and leave the area. The room was left empty, but what had just moved didn't make sense. The way it happened without anyone nearby made the moment stick with people long after watching the clip. White figure. A doctor shared a clip online that caught a lot of attention. A hospital staff member was pushing a coffin when a white, almost human-shaped figure appeared in front of him. It moved just enough to be clearly seen before fading away. Watching it back, the figure stood out because of how clearly it took shape for such a brief second, then vanished without a trace. Creepy hand. When a man in Brazil was resting inside a clinic, something truly terrifying happened. The security camera captured a huge, dark shape under his bed that looked like a hand. It slowly reached toward the man's leg. The instant it touched him, he jolted in shock and jumped off the bed. He had no idea what had just grabbed him, and didn't stay to check either. He rushed out of the room in fear, and the hand disappeared too. After that terrifying night, the man avoided that clinic for a very long time because he was too scared to go back. Strange hospital incidents. Strange things were happening inside this hospital ward. The patients who were admitted there were constantly complaining about seeing strange things. Hospital staff dismissed it as paranoia due to illness until one staff member saw this moment live from the control room. A shadowy figure appeared beside one of the sedated patients. For a brief moment, it hovered over his bed, then moved to linger right beside him. The staff realized the patients had been telling the truth all along, but they didn't know how to tackle this creepy and mysterious situation. Last moments.
Party toiler.
They're having a party? What kind of, is it a birthday party with kids?
On the 18th of March, 2019, a man recorded this creepy video during the final moments of his grandmother's life. There had been just the two of them in the room. Suddenly, his grandmother said something spine-chilling.
Can you see this little pink girl here?
The pink girl?
You can't.
No, I can't see the pink girl.
She said she could see a girl standing right in front of her. She even told him that someone was having a party there, even though the room was completely silent. Those were her final words, and they left the grandson wondering if she'd been hallucinating or some spirits had really come to take her away to the afterlife.
All Taylor Doyle.
Taylor's there?
Taylor.
Yeah, I thought you said Taylor.
Paranormal Hospital. This is one of the most paranormally active hospitals ever caught on camera. In Puebla, Mexico, hospital staff began reporting that medical tools and patient files were getting misplaced. Management eventually reviewed the CCTV footage and discovered something disturbing. Every object in the hallway was somehow moving on its own. Chairs slid across the hallway, drawers flew open with force, and the entire place turned into a mess. It was clearly paranormal activity, but the administration tried to keep it hidden to avoid panic. But someone still leaked this video, causing many patients and staff to flee. Talking to a ghost. On the 3rd of August, 2016, inside a hospital in Cordoba, Argentina, a man was sitting alone in the waiting area. Suddenly, he began talking to someone who was not there. The footage clearly showed him giving directions to the invisible being. Moments later, he stood up to guide it down the hallway. 1 week later, the security guards were reviewing the footage and came across this unsettling scene. They were confused, terrified, and realized that the man probably didn't even know he'd been talking to a ghost. Haunting in Ohio.
See, no.
Late one night, a security guard was patrolling the surge ward at a hospital in Ohio. When he passed through this specific hallway, he felt an unnatural cold on his skin and also sensed movements. Eventually, he started recording to prove he wasn't being paranoid. Turns out, he really wasn't! A wheelchair in front of him began moving forward. Those wheelchairs are quite heavy and can't roll forward on their own too like that, which is why he freaked out and ran from there. He remembered how heavily that surge room was used during COVID, so maybe all that loss had turned the place haunted. Ghostly hospital being. This hospital in Thailand was shut down in 1989 due to insufficient funds, and ever since then, people avoid entering it due to its creepy vibe. But in 2018, an explorer decided to explore it for fun. As he walked through the dark corridors, he learned why everyone stayed away from it. There was a mysterious white shape on the other side of a door's vision panel. He felt like a pale, ghostly being was watching him. And he was right, because suddenly, the shape moved out of sight. Fear took over him, and he ran out the building screaming. Vanishing ghost. A TikTok user named Brian Barranco shared a terrifying video from one of his explorations. He and his friend had broken into an abandoned hospital in Cuba as a daring challenge, but their fun ended fast. In the distance, Brian suddenly saw a shape move really fast. It looked like a person. However, they were supposed to be completely alone. Brian began shouting his friend's name and calling out to him fearfully. Brian even moved forward to find that figure, but whatever it was had already vanished like a ghost. After that, the friends decided this was their last adventure. Scary ward clip. In May 2020, a patient inside a hospital in Chile kept asking to be moved from his room. He said he felt scared and uneasy there. After days of repeated complaints, the staff finally shifted him to another ward and checked the CCTV to see what had been troubling him. That's when they found this terrifying footage. The objects in his room kept moving on their own, including the chair and the infusion pump machine. The staff remembered that a patient had passed away in that same room just before this one was admitted, and only after that this began happening. This couldn't be a coincidence. Haunted ward. Authorities of this hospital in Santiago, Chile had to evacuate a ward for the most shocking reason. Staff had been reporting strange activity for weeks. Management tried to say it was just equipment malfunction, but the complaints kept coming. When investigators checked the wing, they witnessed the same thing. The panels in the drop ceilings would shift and move on their own, and faucets in the same wing kept turning on and off as if someone invisible was messing with them. They realized the staff had been telling the truth. Until they found a proper solution, the entire wing would remain closed and out of use.
Oh my god.
Trapped souls.
Oh.
Hospitals are meant for healing, but sometimes they trap souls. This hospital in Houston, Texas had too many patients who passed away during a viral outbreak. The place became difficult to work in. One night, a nurse was tending to a patient when the curtain behind her suddenly slid with great force. In the same week, a security camera captured another curtain getting drawn, and the heart monitor showed readings, even though no one was there. A shadow appeared briefly, and then the entire curtain dropped. Now staff are unsure how to deal with the restless presence trapped in the hospital. Shape-shifting entity. The following CCTV video captured something downright scary. A security guard was monitoring the screens. That's when one live feed from an empty hallway showed a dark, shape-shifting form appearing when no one else was there to witness it. It was tall and towering, almost reaching the ceiling. At the same time, a wheelchair nearby began rolling on its own. The movement made it clear that this entity was powerful enough to affect physical objects too. The footage ended there, and the mystery of the incomplete event makes it even more terrifying. Creepiest encounters. This one opened like a routine hospital security check. Just a room and a young girl lying on the bed. Then the sheet slid down by itself. A second later, she rose straight up on the mattress, balanced and rigid, as if gravity had briefly lost its grip on her. The doctor and nurse nearby kept chatting for a moment, completely unaware. Then she flicked her hand. A metal tool glided across the table and landed in her palm. That was the moment the footage crossed a line. These CCTVs captured creepiest encounters on camera, and this clip felt like it walked right out of a nightmare. Abandoned military hospital. In another clip, a young man wandered through an abandoned military hospital in Germany, his camera recording everything. Then, at the far end of one corridor, a figure darted across the frame and vanished. Later, he opened a closet and found someone crouched inside, frozen like they'd been hiding for a long time. The video cut off right there, leaving everything unresolved. Some people said the person was hiding from something unseen. Others believed the whole thing was staged. What do you think? Glowing eyes. He started out just exploring, casually filming through the long abandoned hospital. At first, it was nothing unusual, but then he heard footsteps trailing behind him. That's when things shifted. Trusting his gut, he decided to leave rather than push his luck. But later, during playback, the real shock hit. At the far end of the hallway, a dark figure sat perfectly still, its eyes glowing. Seeing it on screen made the encounter far more disturbing than he realized in the moment. Shadowed figure. A girl waited for her sister outside the OPD when something near a door caught her eye. A dark, almost human-shaped figure lay on the floor. Its face was shadowed and impossible to read, and just looking at it sent chills down her spine. It didn't move, but its presence made the whole hallway tense, like something was silently watching. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comments below. Haunted wheelchair. The cameraman did not expect this to happen. The lights started flickering, catching a man completely off guard. He pulled out his phone, thinking it was just a glitch, but then things got strange. Right in the middle of the hallway, an empty wheelchair began rolling on its own, with no one around. His heart skipped a beat as he filmed everything. Not sticking around to figure it out, he ran off, leaving behind footage that still has people staring in disbelief. Spirit opens door. Nothing seemed unusual at first in her hospital room until the door slowly creaked open on its own. No one was nearby, and the air didn't explain it. The girl recording froze, watching in disbelief as the door kept moving in the same strange cycle. When she finally called out for the nurse, everything stopped and the room went back to normal, leaving her shaken. Ghostly legs. He thought he was alone in the hospital room, quietly waiting, until he noticed a pair of feet standing at the foot of the bed, solid and clear. They didn't belong to anyone he could see. Lifting his head, the room was completely empty. Nobody had entered or left. The footage left no other explanation, making it clear to everyone that he had captured something real and deeply unsettling. Drifting machine.
What?
This guy was visiting his grandfather, sitting quietly in the hospital room, when a machine in the corner started moving on its own. It drifted slowly toward the bed, guided by some invisible force. No nurses were nearby, no windows open, not even a breeze. Whether paranormal or something else, the footage leaves viewers questioning what could really make it move. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Haunted third floor. In this unsettling clip, a nurse always felt unnerved on the 3rd floor, and she had heard this area had the most patients who passed away. As soon as she reached it, she sensed something was off. The elevator doors started moving on their own. Then a massive machine in the corridor began spinning before coming to a stop. No one else was around, and the machine was far too heavy to move by itself. Though she made it out safely, she finally understood why no one wanted to work on that floor. Sliding door mystery. Late at night, in a hospital already surrounded by rumors, a sliding door suddenly started moving on its own. It slowly opened, paused, then gently closed, like someone unseen had just walked through. There was no explanation for what triggered it. Some viewers felt the moment was oddly peaceful rather than frightening, and that quiet, unexplained movement is what makes this footage stick with you. Ghost on bed. A patient noticed strange things happening in her room, so she grabbed a camera to capture it. Later, watching the footage, her doubts disappeared. A clear figure passed right through her bed. Some say it's an angel, a calm, gentle presence, but the dark, eerie feeling of the clip makes it hard to feel at ease. Even the most ordinary moments can suddenly feel completely unsettling. Haunted department. A guard in Brazil was working a late-night shift in the pathology department of a hospital. He was doing his usual rounds when he heard loud banging in the corridor. At the same time, the hallway lights began flickering mysteriously too. After following the noise, he realized it was coming from emergency cabinet doors, slamming again and again. These doors were not automatic and could only be opened by hand, which is why the moment was so confusing and terrifying. The guard believed the souls of those kept in the mortuary didn't move on to the afterlife and were now haunting the department. Hospital ghost. The video begins with a really disturbing scene. When these paranormal investigators broke into an abandoned hospital in Thailand, they saw a tall man pushing a wheelchair in the hallway. The hospital was forced to shut down in 1998 after a medical malpractice cost a patient's life. So after rushing out and realizing the man had vanished, they believed it had been the ghost of that patient. Moments later, he appeared again, this time sitting behind them. They immediately ran away, but by the time they looked back, he had vanished once more. That encounter was so terrifying that they left the hospital after that. Ward ghost. A guard in Santa Rosa Hospital in Copan, Honduras, was sent to patrol a wing that was no longer in use due to repurposing. He began hearing strange sounds. The area was supposed to be empty, so he feared someone had broken in and started recording, but it was not an intruder. Near one of the doors, a ghostly shape appeared. Only the upper half was visible, as if the lower part was missing. It seemed to peek at him. Moments later, the shape stepped fully into view. The guard immediately fled the ward and alerted management. Patient's shadow. In a hospital in Mexico, a nurse ended up capturing a truly haunting scene. She had been recording a fellow nurse when suddenly a figure appeared walking on the other side of the operating room door. What made it terrifying was that this operating room only had one entrance, so no one else could have been inside. They immediately rushed through the door, but the room was completely empty. Moments later, an unseen force began moving an equipment table across the floor. They realized this had to be a ghost and ran out of the room in fear. Now it's time for today's open discussion of the day. This security footage from a morgue is truly terrifying. In August 2024, a nurse was inside a cold storage room with the gurney pulled out from a refrigerator unit. She was about to transport it for final ceremonies. Then the camera captured an unexpected and unbelievable movement. The nurse turned to look, but dismissed the moment, thinking that her exhaustion was playing tricks on her mind after long shifts. However, this video is proof that she hadn't imagined it. Viewers suspect this might be a spasm caused in the final moments, rigor mortis, or a spirit that refused to move on? What do you think? Like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.